Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're kicking off our Hughes Brothers series with 1993's Menace II Society. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. You can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or follow us on Twitter or Facebook at The Next Reel. And we got a blot spot friend of the show. Ben Lott has written in with his rebound on, The Emigrants.
Yeah. I don't think you liked it very much. My apologies to whoever picked this film, but I was dreadfully bored by it. I've seen plenty of movies about people leaving their homeland to come to the new world, and this one didn't do anything new or original. The story dragged and lacked focus, and the dubbing was so strange, particularly when they started to interact with people speaking English. A film that was totally not for me. Your rank 257, my rank 270. Those rankings are fairly close, but I think ours has a lot more love going on with it.
Yeah, it's definitely got some more heart.
Although I think it's funny that he actually watched the dubbed version that
like me
as well.
Yeah, I know, it was terrible. It was terrible. That's aged poorly on me, just the experience of it. So I certainly can relate to Ben's issue. Anyhow, Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers.
I'm I'm going to go first because I got the zombie trailer and
Yeah.
I had to grab it because I saw it. I'm like, oh, this looks fun. And I wanted to make sure that you didn't get to pick it because
you totally got dibs.
I know if you saw it first, you totally would have. You and your zombie fetish.
That's right.
I don't like horror movies, but check out the zombies.
Oh God, I love zombie movies. Why is that? Oh, it's so dark. Okay, go on. Tell me all about it.
This is Here Alone. This is a movie directed by Rod Blackhurst that it was actually a 2016 film, but it's getting released soon. This is a film about a young woman who struggles to survive on her own in the wake of a mysterious epidemic that has decimated society and forced her deep into the unforgiving wilderness. Lucy Walters plays the protagonist, and it looks really interesting. I'm very curious about kind of the vibe of this film because it feels very much like it's a little bit of The Road. It's a little bit of 28 Days Later. Like, is this a zombie epidemic? Is it just some strange disease that has kind of made everybody kind of go crazy and feast on flesh? And here she is, like, creating her own little military rituals, covering herself in mud and everything to sneak into places and try finding food before all the hordes track her and find her. And then she runs into some people, and it's like, now it's the whole Walking Dead sort of thing, right? Do you trust these people? Do you not?
Oh yeah.
And it's got this great vibe, a really kind of creepy feel to it and everything. And I don't know. I really enjoyed the tone of the trailer. Shane West pops up as, I guess it would be her husband before he must at some point mysteriously die. I don't know. I really enjoyed the trailer. What'd you think?
No, I'm right with you. I thought it was great. I don't even know. I felt like the trailer wasn't really put together all that well. Like I don't feel like I got like if I step back and look critically at it, it's a little bit haphazard, and so I don't feel like there's much of a thread to get there. It feels a lot like The Bride from last week to me, although it doesn't come in at almost 5 minutes. And so there may be multiple stories in here, but I give it such a pass because it's zombie stories. It could be it could be like Creepshow for all I care, and it's just story after story of zombies, and I'm totally in. I'm totally in.
I knew that would happen. I
Who
knew I'd
cares?
have a winner this week.
You got a total winner. Yeah, no, hook, line, sinker, dead flesh.
The whole 9 yards. Awesome. Well, this is going to have a limited release March 31st. I think it just finished up its festival run just this past February, and so now it's time to have a limited theatrical before we'll all be able to probably watch it streaming.
Okay, my trailer, Andy. I picked this for a couple of reasons, but the biggest one is that we were just talking about our mutual connection to Terrence Malick last week.
Yes.
And so I picked Terrence Malick's new film. This is Song to Song. It tells the story of, on IMDb, two intersecting love triangles, obsession and betrayal set against the music scene in Austin, Texas. And that's the second reason I picked it, because I'm a sucker for the music scene in Austin, Texas. I love music movies, and so I will see this as a result of the musicality of it. And the cast. The cast looks really good. Haley Bennett, who we most recently saw in Girl on the Train, which I thought she was terrific, and what a bananas movie that was. And Ryan Gosling and Natalie Portman and Rooney Mara and Michael Fassbender, the Fass. Christian Bale, are you kidding? Kate Blanchett, Benicio del Toro, Andy, Val Kilmer is in this movie. Val Kilmer and Holly Hunter. So I don't even know. I don't even know what to make of that. People are lining up to be in movies with this guy. Why we don't connect so well to his movies, I don't know. But I'm gonna give it another shot. I'm gonna continue closing my head in the car door because of the music and the cast. Am I a fool?
It's I struggle right there with you. Terrence Malick, like you said, we did discuss this last week. His films can be very, very frustrating to watch. This looks like it might be a little bit more. I mean, it's love triangles. It's kind of a drama romance sort of thing. It might be his take on kind of I don't want to say romantic comedy, but romantic drama certainly. Could it work?
See,
I don't know.
That's like the punchline to a terrible joke.
I know.
It's like the Terrence Malick romantic comedy. That's
Well,
the worst thing ever.
It probably is his version of a romantic comedy. Oh, just throw some music in it and then people will laugh. I really don't know. I'm curious about it. I rarely race out to see a Terrence Malick film. This one probably won't be at the top of my charts, but I will say there's a little tie to tonight's movie because Clifton Collins Jr. pops up in it, and he actually has a very big part in our movie tonight. So,
and I didn't mention also Callie Hernandez is in Song to Song, and she's in the trailer. The movie for the trailer I really wanted to do, which as we record this because of my weird travel schedule, it's. When you hear this is been time shifted dramatically, but the second Alien Covenant trailer dropped just like an hour and a half ago, and I really wanted to talk about that, but I think we've already talked about it.
Yes,
the movie, so I'm not going to. But she's in that movie, and so bonus trailer.
Very big of you. Very big
anyhow,
of you.
Very. Well, I've been known for my grandiosity. This opens in the U.S. of A. at South by Southwest, March 10th. And so by the time you're hearing this, it probably has already opened, maybe? Not even sure. We will see it wide release March 17th. Line up, you Malick heads. March 17th. Okay, Andy, what'd you say about my mama?
So what are you going to do, KD? You gonna mess around out there in the streets till you get killed?
What's that, sir?
You gotta think about your life. Being a black man in America isn't easy. All I'm saying is survive.
You need to be glad that you graduated from high school and that you're alive at 18. And you need to do something with yourself before you end up like he did.
I'm not gonna end up like he did, all right?
Oh man, you know I'm down. But I also know that life has better things to offer than what's on the street out there.
Why are you so worried about me?
Why shouldn't I be?
Menace II Society, Andy, 1993, directed by Albert and Allen Hughes. It stars Tyrin Turner, Larenz Tate, Samuel L. Jackson, briefly. It's actually a fantastic cast. We're going to walk through it. It is the story of a young street hustler and his attempts to escape the ghetto and the war zone that is his life day to day. Man, it was great watching this movie again. How did it hit you?
Oh, absolutely the same. It's funny. This is one of those movies that came out at a time when there were a number of films kind of depicting this world. Colors, New Jack City, Boys in the Hood, and I remember. I really enjoyed seeing Boys in the Hood, and then I saw this one, and this one just had so much of a darker tone. And really, I think even the Hughes brothers talked about how that one had a lot more hope to it. This one, they really wanted to just have that grittiness, that rough edge, and just less of that hope, and kind of just more of the world that they had seen in this environment. And I always, I don't know why, but I clicked with this version of that world more than the Boys in the Hood. And I still really like Boys in the Hood. I think it's an excellent, excellent film. But this film there's just such a dark tone to it, and it's vicious and it's brutal. But I think that they're also saying a lot about, how people in this environment grow up and what are the options for them to find a way out. And so I really liked it. I loved connecting with it again. Just it's a film that hasn't aged. I felt that it felt as raw and visceral as it did when I first saw it back in, I can't remember if I saw this in the theater as soon as it came out way back in the day on Laserdisc.
Of course you did, Andy. Of course you did.
Oh, yes.
It's funny. You say it didn't age. There were a couple of elements, and I will list them. Jada Pinkett, that actually did age sort of strangely for me. When we talk about, elements of the film that hold up, just her, anytime she was in the film, I felt like it was a little bit dated. But I was amazed at how well the rest of the film held up for me, like how it didn't feel dated, how it was just sort of ageless, timeless. And I actually, I wouldn't say every time Jada Pinkett's on screen. I think her costuming was particularly dated, right? That's giant,
what I was going to say.
Baggy.
I didn't think Jada was dated, but boy, were her outfits.
Yeah, right. Her outfits with the giant sort of balloon jeans, the Guess like giant jeans pegged at the ankle, and the way oversized shirts. Yeah. And those are that's a little bit dated. And for some strange reason, and I was going to hold this for cinematography and editing, but for some strange reason, whenever we were in her house and her bedroom in particular, the way the colors worked, there was something about it. It almost felt like it was shot on video, and it was just a little too crisp, and it looked like a set on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't know why, but every time we went into her house, I ended up being sort of torn from it, which I thought was really funny. Not in a negative way. Like, this wasn't a thing where I hated the film as a result of that, but it stuck out to me as kind of a little shiny piece.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I mean, even the Hughes brothers talking about this film talk about how, I mean, this was a film made on a low budget. I mean, it wasn't scraping the barrel sort of low budget, but it was still a low budget. And even they talk about looking at this film and, oh man, if I could do it again, I would go back and I'd tell the same story, but I would fix all these technical issues that we had. They said that, people commented about how they loved all the handheld camera work in there. And they said, well, some of that we weren't intending to do handheld, but we were just running out of time. And that was really the only option that we had. We had to just race in there and get them that way. And, happy that it ended up working in and helping with their style. But I think that they might agree with you on some of those points that, there might be some scenes, I don't know if it's those ones in particular, but some scenes in the film that they wish that they could actually do better.
I think it's this sort of technical kind of unevenness actually in this case gives the film a rather unique character, and it doesn't necessarily detract from it, but it's notable. And I found myself like, whenever they do the, moving around the subject in a circle, right? Putting the tripod on wheels and kind of moving around. It takes me back to my first student films, like in high school. Like, hey, this is awesome. Let's put wheels on the camera and see what happens. And so there's a certain amount of amateurishness that comes through that I find in this film ironically charming visually.
It's funny because it really feels like these guys, I mean, they were 20 when they made this movie. Essentially making these early movies was film
that's
school
about right.
This and the music videos that they were doing. And they talked about how Goodfellas and particularly Scorsese were such influences on them. And looking at Scorsese's body of work and what he did in Goodfellas really kind of gave them a lot of ideas. And you can see that just all over the film, and it's so obvious that they had that young mindset of let's just do some of the stuff that Scorsese's doing because it's cool and it's going to really give our film a life and everything. And it did. It's very visceral. It's very energetic. And I love that about the film. And it doesn't bother me that it feels like they are kind of pulling from Scorsese because I think they do it well. And I think that's kind of the key is it feels like a successful homage rather than just a poor ripping off of somebody. And there's a fantastic scene where it's like the house is cut in half and you have the camera kind of dollying left as you're following a character walking from room to room, and you're seeing this is, I think, one of the party scenes when he ends up hooking up with Ronnie, and the camera just kind of follows, and you're cutting through the walls and everything, going over to the bedroom. I mean, it's really cool, and it worked really well. And so I think that's kind of the the difference is that these guys really had a good set of skills that they were able to bring to the table to make it their own.
Yeah, no, I thought so too. And the shot that I remember them doing that, it's the kind of reverse tracking shot where they're going out of the house after he beats up on what's his name with the gun, with the butt of the gun, and they're dragging him out of the house, and you get this really sort of violent dolly out toward the door, and you still see, like, to your point about the house being cut in half, you still see the framing elements in the walls that they're shooting through that normally would have the wiring and the insulation and stuff. It puts you in a very unique place in the spirit of this. You feel like a voyeur in some of the ways that I know they're shooting kind of guerrilla and by necessity, and the result is it puts us as an audience in a very unique position.
I think a lot of the energy that they bring works well in context of this world that they're depicting, right? This rough world in Watts, the projects where all these guys are growing up. And I mean, we see just the difficult world that Kane has been in his whole life. And I like that they actually give us a little bit of historical context, how, there were these riots in the 60s, and those kind of led to the rise in the drugs here. And we see that played out by Samuel L. Jackson, his father, and just the awful stuff that he's witnessed as a young boy, and how he's grown up. And really that's influenced it's really colored his view of everything going on in this world. And you get this really interesting point of view with this character, and he's a kind of a tough character, our protagonist, to connect with, because I mean, he does a lot of awful things all throughout. He's not the sort of guy I'd probably want to go hang out with all the time, but you get this interesting sense of their motivations and why they end up becoming the way they are, and this ridiculous kind of vicious cycle of blame that they have, and how one guy does something to somebody else, and so they've got to do something to him, and then his friends got to do something to them, and it's just this never-ending battle. It's never going to end, and just the consequences and the way all of that unfolds. I think that the energy that they brought to the filmmaking here in telling this particular story were perfectly in tune with the vibe and the tone and the energy within this community.
How much did this remind you of City of God?
Oh, that's a great pairing. That is a really interesting pairing. That I hadn't even actually thought of that, but that's just a really smart look at two films with really interesting filmmaking, giving you a full sense of the world that we're in.
Totally my experience. I mean, these are, and I feel like we could have a very similar conversation about the just cultural elements that we are thrust into the middle of, the unexpected, just brain-bashingly shocking violence that comes out of nowhere and is taken so for granted. I'm thinking specifically in this case about O-Dog and the guy who wanted to buy the drugs from him in exchange for the burgers, and he offers him all sorts of sex trades, and eventually O-Dog just loses it and grabs the burgers and puts the gun in his stomach and shoots him, and it is incredibly violent, and it happens incredibly quickly. And at the end of it, he says, "Anybody want a burger?" Right? It is just absolutely dismissed. And it was those sorts of elements about the ease with which they deal in and truck in violence. I think it's a powerful parallel, and something that I just feel like, again, maybe this movie is more resonant for me after our conversation on Get Out, when I'm specifically sort of put in the head and getting a peek under the cover of the experience that these guys have to see if I can take ownership of it in that way. I don't think I have the same kind of connection to it that I ended up having with Get Out, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, that's actually interesting that we had just talked about that, and now we're looking at this experience here. It is a shocking world that these guys live in, where murder is just commonplace. I mean, even when O-Dog shoots that crackhead in the belly and grabs his burgers, his two buddies at the end of the alley just look up like, oh, what is he doing now?
Yeah,
it's like they don't even look up like, damn, he just killed a man.
Yeah,
it's just it's a mentality that they've grown up with their entire lives. I mean, here O-Dog is like this 15-year-old kid and just doesn't have any sense of anything. Like there's just complete lack of morals growing up in his life. It's such an interesting place.
What is it called? Why can't I think of it? The mechanic, what it's called when the narrator, it's not an unreliable narrator, but when the narrator, the voiceover narrator is actually dead.
I think it's
the dead narrator?
You could call it posthumous narration. That's
I like that.
That's a name for it.
I like that.
That's what I've heard, or just a dead narrator. I think those are the two things I've heard.
Man, yours sounds so much smarter. Check out the big brain on Andy. That's the mechanic here that we're dealing like the way the voiceover is in the voice of Kane, and we don't discover until the very end that in fact this voiceover is taking place over the few seconds as his life is flashing before his eyes at the end of the film, and so that's his voice. What did you think of the mechanic and how they built this into the script? Does it work for you? Because we tend to be fairly critical of voiceovers.
That's another thing that they talk about pulling from Scorsese is the narration, the source music, the camera work, all that sort of stuff. I think the narration works pretty well. I think there are times in here where it's stronger than other times. But the way that it builds in that finale, I think is what ends up selling it for me. I think that his last few lines really give so much strength to it. And actually, I mean, from the beginning, I really enjoy the stuff that he's saying. I mean, that first line that he has after O-Dog shoots the liquor store owner, he's just like, went into the store just to get a beer, came out an accessory to murder and armed robbery. It was funny like that here sometimes. You never know what was going to happen or when. After that, I knew it was going to be a long summer. That was a perfect setup for the story. So I guess to that end, it mostly worked for me.
I really like the concept of the posthumous narrator, and I think that the value of it really does come at the end, right? You feel at the end of the film whether or not they've earned it. When you discover, the big reveal that in fact this is a deathbed narration, that the last 2 hours that you've spent with these characters are effectively a flashback, which I thought worked really, really well here in terms of and it's smart. I mean, it's smart structuring, and I think shows a level of sophistication kind of beyond their years as filmmakers.
For the most part, I think they actually write a really solid script. I mean, these two guys paired with Tiger Williams, one of their old high school friends, did the story, and then Tiger Williams wrote the script. I think for the most part, it's actually really spot on and strong. There's only I think only one moment that I felt it got a little preachy, and that was when Grandpa comes out and is just what is it that he says?
Thou shalt not kill?
No, he says, "Do you care if you live or die?" And he kind of looks back and he's like, thinks for a bit. He's like, I don't know. Like that to me was just, I don't know. That felt like hitting the nail on the head a little bit with what are we trying to say here? But
that's funny that's the one that got you. The one that got me was when we looped and saw Ronnie's son come out on the back porch and ask for a beer, essentially repeating the sequence that we saw when Kane was, the son's age, years and years prior, and actually got the beer and got to play with the gun, and so that felt a little bit on the nose to me. Like they're hammering home for us with this little scene on the stoop just how different this kid's life is going to be as a result of the lessons that Kane learned, I got it.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. But it is interesting, and I'm very curious to know what happens to young Anthony, the little 5-year-old, Ronnie's 5-year-old son with Purnell. He was interested in the world, right? He wanted to play with the gun. He likes using the vulgar language. He sneaks outside so that he can hang with all the big people and everything. And then he's right there in the middle of the gunfire at the very end. Is he going to grow up? Is Ronnie going to be able to kind of pull him out of that world in Atlanta and get him clean? Or having seen all that and been a part of it, is it already too late for him? And is he going to, has he lost his chance at redemption? I'm curious about that. I know people have gone up to the Hughes brothers and the actors quite a bit wanting a sequel. What happened to O-Dog? What happened to these characters? And I don't think they've ever seriously considered it, but it is one of those stories where it's like, a lot of really compelling characters. And it's like, do they find a way through or not?
Yeah, I think the other side of that argument, though, is what happens to Anthony. It's Cain.
Well,
right?
Yeah,
this is the repeating, history repeats itself story. That there is, insofar as the theme is redemption, it's also the fact that there is no redemption. Right.
Well,
you
yes
still
and no.
struggle, right?
Yeah, I mean, because yes and no. I mean, you see, was it Sharif who finds the Nation of Islam, right? And he finds a way out. And Ronnie is not Cain's parents. Ronnie is really fighting for Anthony, and she's already actively moving. And so I feel like there might be a hint of redemption, an opportunity for young Anthony, if he can kind of get himself through all the counseling he's going to need after having gone through it.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I get Ronnie, but doesn't Sharif end up gunned down in the lawn?
He does. I know.
That's not a way out. Much for that.
Right.
He finds Islam and ends up in a bloody pulp.
Didn't save him.
So yeah, right. No, well, I mean, I actually, I mean, I don't know how I'd feel about a Menace. I don't know. What do you even call it? Because of the way they write the title, I would want to call it Menace II Society.
I know
that doesn't work. Who says Menace II Society too? That's weird. But I don't know how I'd feel about that. That's one of those movies I don't think needs to be made. I actually really like the kind of the fact that it is Cain that saves Anthony, and it almost sort of hands the narrative off to him. As they start again. I think that's a really beautiful moment as he, as he's shot and huddles over Anthony to protect him. We've already talked about a little bit about the struggles that the Hughes brothers went through just to shoot this thing. What do you think of their work as directors at this point in their career?
They're an interesting pair. They kind of separate the directing duties. One of them handles all the acting. One of them handles all of the technical side of things. I can't remember which one is which. This is my problem with twins, is I never remember which one is the one that does certain things or which one is which. But yeah, that's kind of how they split it up. And I think that it actually helps them quite a bit because they are able to really focus on much more specific things. And perhaps as young filmmakers, that might have really given them a leg up as far as not having to had to just kind of focus so much on like the entirety of everything, but they were able to kind of limit it a little bit. And I think that might have helped them. I think that they're solid. I mean, we already talked about kind of how they pull these homages from Scorsese, but I think that they were pretty ballsy. I mean, really, they took a story that I think a lot of people were like, this is pretty, it's kind of potentially a dangerous film. This is something that, young people might see it and it might influence them the wrong way. Are people going to get it? Or are they going to just think that it's, something that should never have been made? Even one of the two brothers talks about how, if you hate blacks, this movie will make you hate them even more. And it's
that sure sounds like an Allen Hughes circa 1993.
Yeah, they actually had to. It sounds like they had to go to some publicity training because they were rather vocal with some of their opinions, and I think they had to be toned down a little bit to not offend people so readily.
Well, and to their credit, it worked because watching them in more contemporary interviews scenarios, they are really smooth, like they're really good, and you can feel just sort of how that, because some filmmakers don't mature like that, they aren't able to take direction themselves, and these guys are quite good.
Well, and I'm curious, this is going to be an interesting series to look at because these are filmmakers who found a lot of success right out of the gate with this film. And then a lot of people wanted them to make more gangster films or more films that were very much like this, immediately pigeonholing them to continue working in this. And they actively pushed to avoid that. I mean, they did Dead Presidents, which is a little bit kind of the kind of the not the gangster life so much, but the crime life that Larenz Tate kind of falls into after serving in Vietnam. But then they kind of go off and do a documentary. They do From Hell, based on a comic book about Jack the Ripper, Book of Eli. They have a very varied career, and that's something that I think some of their fans may not have wanted to see them do. And so they haven't had a big career, and which really disappoints me, because I feel like they had such great stuff right out of the gate, and I really want to see them doing more. But it's tough, I guess, when you hit your stride so early on.
Let's do first shot, last shot.
Yeah, the first shot, we start with some audio of Kane and O-Dog talking outside over black, and then we cut to the interior of a Korean liquor store as they enter to buy some 40s.
And the last shot, this is after the big gunning down scene. We have this quick shot of what we are led to believe, I think, is the last thing Kane saw, with several guns firing at him as his final line in the voiceover wraps the film for us. It's tough.
It really is. I mean, I think that it just says a lot about this world. You know, we start with a murder that O-Dog just commits very much on a whim, because he just doesn't like what this guy said to him. And we end with, again, consequences and actions, and how this whole thing continues to unfold, that how really kind of just their lifestyle led to this last moment. And it's a tragedy of the never-ending cycle of violence that these boys have grown up in.
It's interesting to me when you look at the re-release, the deluxe edition director's cut cover art. It's kind of split, and the bottom half of the frame we have Kane and O-Dog walking next to, just walking towards us, everything's fine. In the background, we have kind of off in the city skyline, we have the car that gunned them down, but the top half of the frame of the cover art is Kane's death sequence. Like, it's the end of the film. So we almost have a first shot, last shot kind of, right in the cover art of the film. And I think that's kind of telling, that, at least at some level, the filmmakers are seeing that connection, just as we are. I mean, I find that really compelling.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's one of those coverers that I was looking at going, I mean, I guess it's a 20-some-year-old movie, but it's like, God, they're kind of giving you the ending away right there on the cover.
Yeah, right. But if you hadn't seen the movie, it would mean very little to you.
Well,
right?
no, that's true. That's true. And it is hard to tell that that's Kane.
Yeah,
in that
right.
in that photo. But,
which is why I think it's more powerful, right? That they chose to go that way. With that art, I think it's really interesting. I wonder how much input the Hughes brothers themselves actually had on that re-release. I don't know. I mean, they obviously, when they went back and did the director's cut,
right.
But on that cover art, I wonder what they contributed to that. So anyway, I think it's a pretty powerful mix.
Yeah, interesting.
Casting was done by Tony Lee.
Yeah, Tony Lee. Looks like this was his first feature project. And then, it looks like he did about 30 films, then retired or quit or something in about 2002, and hasn't done anything since. No credits since then. So I don't know what happened with old Tony.
He got us Tyrin Turner playing Kane Lawson. He was a find.
I really enjoyed watching Tyrin on screen. A really compelling performance. And what's interesting is that the Hughes brothers had seen him in an episode of America's Most Wanted. And they just felt like this guy had a lot of energy in one of the reenactments, and they had their casting director track him down and brought him in and cast him, which it's such an interesting way to find somebody. And it's great for Tyrin. I think that he's a really compelling actor. It's a tricky character to play, because this is a protagonist who, we don't really have a great save the cat moment. I mean, just when you kind of feel like, oh, he's saving the cat here, it's like, oh no, he's just, he's being a jerk again. And it's a really tricky way that this character is, but it's just the world that he's in. So I still find him really compelling, even though he's a character that frustrates me.
Compelling. And why is it then that we do see him as a sympathetic character? Arguably, it's because everyone else around him is worse.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, yes, everybody around him is worse. I mean, I guess it's we're following him. We're in his head because we're getting his voiceover. So all of that obviously helps us kind of get drawn to him a little bit. But also I think that he is a character that we get a sense of this other side. We see that, his mentor, I guess we'll call him, Purnell, and is off in prison and has left Ronnie and his son behind. And we see that Kane is actively trying to give Ronnie money. He is kind of, I don't want to say a father figure so much to young Anthony, but kind of. I mean, he kind of tries to support him and teach him things, even if some of them are terrible. But I think I think there's a little something there. Is like we see another side to this character. We see this humanity to this guy. Plus, he's got the grandparents that are trying to kind of support him and push him in the right direction. So we see those chances that he has at finding a way out. And I think that's what we as the audience, the surrogate, latch onto with him and hope that he can kind of pull us through.
Well, and we also see that, again, in terms of kind of the film folding in on itself, the sequence when he goes to jail to talk with Purnell and actually admits, man, when I was young, you were like my dad. And that's an incredibly powerful moment in the film when we actually see that and then realize, well, yeah, okay, this is a storyline that's repeating. This is Anthony. He's, Anthony is Kane. Kane is Anthony, and they are in each other's paths, and makes it that much more interesting. I think it's sequences like that when we see the vulnerability that he's able to portray on screen, in spite of his youth and inexperience as an actor, it is really natural and palpable, and I think that's what anchors us to his experience.
Yep, absolutely.
Jada Pinkett, we already mentioned, she's so young. Oh my gosh. Just when you ask yourself, those times when you ask yourself, was Jada Pinkett ever that young? Yes, she was in this movie. She was that young.
But what's funny is I see her in this and I feel like, damn, she hasn't aged at all. I mean, she looks so young still. I mean, it's just amazing how good she looks. And she's a really interesting character here. I know there were you had some difficulties with her character and her wardrobe, but I still found her.
No. I got to be clear. It was not her character.
It was just the wardrobe.
Her wardrobe and the way she was shot.
Gotcha.
I really like her. I really, really, really like her.
Yeah, no, she's great. And I think that it's a really interesting side of the story. And I like that aspect here. And she's an actress that I always enjoy to see, whether it's this or Bamboozled, or she was in one of the Scream movies I think Scream 2, she's the one who gets killed right at the beginning. She was in
The Matrix.
The Matrix. She's in Collateral. Brilliant film. She's
brilliant.
in the Madagascar films. She's
Andy, Girls Trip. Please.
I was going to say, she's in the new Girls Trip movie with Larenz Tate that's coming out later this year. And I don't care what you say, the trailer did make me laugh.
She was Trish Andrews in Doogie Howser, MD. I mean, come on.
Oh, wow. That's so funny.
Yeah, those were the days. Yeah, she was terrific. I think she, she was interestingly, she actually gets the maternal character, right? The character of sort of maternal wisdom, because the grandmother doesn't quite pull it off. And so the anchor to the future is and the heart and soul of the experience of the film of sort of authenticity and truth and getting out of the violence is in Jada Pinkett. And you can see, that is absolutely telegraphed in her relationship with Purnell, the father of her child, and the level of just sort of disdain that she treats him with is again, it's thick on screen.
Or that he treats her with. The way that he dismissed her in the jail was horrible.
Well, I think they kind of mutually dismissed each other. I mean, the way she looked at him was just daggers and slams the phone down.
See, I thought
felt like she
that
didn't
was
want to be
because
there
he
either.
dismissed her. Maybe I just read it differently, but I thought it was just him. Interesting. That's interesting.
Mutual
I want to look at that scene
dismissal.
again now.
Yeah, me too. Larenz Tate came out of nowhere as Kevin O-Dog Anderson. This was his first film.
He had his first. I want to say it's his first. Was it his first feature? His first lead.
His first feature. He was because he had done a whole bunch of little television
TV. Yeah, right.
things, and it was like Disney stuff, and he came just sort of out of nowhere, and hearing Allen Hughes talk about it, he said it was we thought, there's no way this kid's going to be able to pull it off. But he came into the audition and kneeled down and started playing dice and just brought it immediately, in the first read. The way he told it in this radio interview I was watching.
Well, and I think that's exactly even what Larenz said. He's very much this. I mean, he was 16 when it was like right between junior and senior year in high school, and he was ended up like you said, he went into the audition, and the character O-Dog was really kind of written for like a big guy full of tats and all that, and he was totally not that. He's this scrawny little guy who was only 15, 16 at the time, and he's like, well, I'm going to have to just do what I can to do something different. And so, yeah, that's kind of the character he came up with. And they said he walked in and he was that character, and they knew that they had him right away. So fantastic. I mean, he brings so much energy, and he's a smart actor also, because even at the time he knew that he didn't want to get stuck with people thinking that this is the sort of roles that he's going to play. And he went on to do something that was totally different right afterward, which is The Inkwell, which is more of a kind of a rom-com. And so I think that he's been one of those guys who's kind of, even as a young kid, managing his career in ways that make sense. And I mean, a few years after this, he was in one of your favorite movies, The Postman.
I hate you.
Ford, Lincoln, Mercury, baby.
God.
I want to see that movie again and talk about it with you. So we do have to plan that one of these days.
You better play your Stumper series well this year. You gotta narrow it down. MC Eiht is in the film as AWACS.
MC Eiht as AWACS. He was he was a rapper. He was in the industry. And from what I understood, New Line Cinema kind of put it in the deal that in order to get the movie greenlit, that these guys needed to get a platinum rapper in one of the characters in the film. And so he's the one that they ended up casting. Although it sounded like they had MC Ren, who was going to play the character of AWACS first, but then he ended up joining the Nation of Islam and pulled out of the film. So MC Eiht stepped in, and he's an interesting character. I enjoy his presence on screen.
It's interesting that they went with that character because originally the platinum artist was going to be Tupac Shakur.
Right.
Which also, that ended up being a whole crazy thing. Obviously he didn't end up in the film. So, I mean, it was the rotating circle of platinum MCs.
Yeah. Tupac was going to be Sharif, the Muslim, but
right.
He got in a fight with the directors because they apparently, per Tupac, he wanted a reason why Sharif would turn Muslim because he thought that would never happen. And they said, no, that's the way it is. And he got upset about that, and they just felt he was causing trouble on set and fired him. And later he, got into an altercation with them and sued them, or they sued him. And
this is crazy. So there is one interview on YouTube where Allen Hughes tells the whole story, and it's the only time he's ever told the whole story from his perspective. It's like a half hour on this radio show that they videoed, and it's not long ago. It's pretty recent. And the way the story goes, Tupac was nuts on set, and so the Hughes brothers were telling everybody else on set, "Don't laugh at Tupac's jokes. You're just egging him on. He's crazy. He is not focused." And he said, at one point, I just had to tell him, I said, come with me, Tupac, we got to talk. And Tupac got all up in his face and said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And he says, man, you got to go. And so Tupac walked out and screamed, call my manager, and left the set. Right, just walked out on the set. So 6 months later, Shakur sees him on the street with his buddies and hits him in the back of the head, hits Allen Hughes in the back of the head. And Hughes said it felt like he'd been hit with a Nerf football. And so he turns around, and Hughes is a very big guy, right? I mean, he's a large guy, and Tupac was not a large guy. And so the way Hughes tells it, he picked up Tupac Shakur and had him over his head, and then threw him down on the hood of a car, and that's when he was jumped by Shakur's guys, and he was just pummeled in the street, just to a bloody pulp, the way he tells it. And the only thing that he got away with was he had ripped off all of Shakur's necklaces, all his chains around his neck, and he was holding them, and Shakur was screaming, get my chains, because Hughes was kind of in a mess on the street corner, but he had this tight grip on these these bloody chains. Then this is the part where it gets crazy. So Tupac then goes on Yo MTV Raps, and he starts talking about this whole experience about the Hughes Brothers and Menace II Society. And he says, so I beat him up on the street. Nobody else knows this. Nobody else was there, but I beat up Allen Hughes on the street. And that is what the police used to convict him and send him to jail. He admitted it all on Yo MTV Raps. So, but to hear him talk about it now, Hughes, that is, he says, this was the ultimate tragedy, and in fact, that the way he talks about Tupac Shakur is with the utmost respect, as an artist and as a professional, and as an incredibly intelligent guy who also was, emotional, and so. It's a really interesting story to hear him tell it, and I just went in the rat hole over that story. So,
and Tupac, I mean, he's been in other films. I mean, he's a very
and he was really good
actor. Yeah. I loved him in what was the one that Gridlocked.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed Gridlocked. So
yeah. And Juice. I mean, Juice actually came out right around the same time, right? It was a little bit of a similar.
I think a few years later. Yeah.
92.
Or a year before. A few years later.
You were saying you and your time warp.
Oh, man.
Anyway, who else do you want to talk about? Anybody hot on your list before we get to the stunt casting?
No one really, other than I just wanted to mention Glenn Plummer, who plays Purnell in prison and in the flashback to when we meet Little Kane. But
we get a few minutes of him on screen.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. I really enjoy the character, especially the conversation when he's in jail. But I didn't put two and two together until I was looking at his credits that he was the Jaguar owner in Speed. And, that character has always stuck out in my head. I think it's because his hair is so cool in that movie. And just the way that he ends up spinning out and crashing into the little water barrels there. But that was just so funny when I put two and two together. I'm like, oh, that's totally him. So that was my moment.
Did he get Speed 2 too? Wasn't he a cameo in Speed 2, or was that just
Now that you say that,
he was more recent in Speed 2.
Yeah, I feel like he was I feel like he came back for that. Oh, that is so funny.
So good. So it wasn't he was stunt cast much later. That's not the stunt casting we're talking about here, though. We got Sam Jackson, Bill Duke, and Charles S. Dutton, all three in this film for what? 3 minutes or less?
Yeah, not much. I mean, it was a good call on their part to just get some recognizable faces in here. I mean, three brilliant actors who just carry a lot of weight in their small scenes that just give us a good sense of things. Samuel L. Jackson as Kane's dad in his flashback. I mean, that's just a scary, violent moment to see what transpires in that particular living room that night. And then Bill Duke just obviously has just such great presence. And when he's that detective trying to play games, those mind games with Kane, figuring out did he do it or not, That was great. And then Charles S. Dutton, I mean, he is one of those guys who has that great presence of somebody who's trying to help you. And as Sharif's dad, I just thought that was, he was great in that part.
So let's talk about getting it made. Darren Scott produced the thing.
Yeah. I think that, he and the Hughes brothers worked well together, creating this film. It was an interesting story where, they were showing it to a lot of people, and a lot of people were, I think, a little intimidated by the script and weren't quite so sure if it was something that they wanted to jump in bed with. But I think that he, found the right people to do it. And even though at the time, some people were kind of convinced that this wasn't really kind of a legitimate story, that it wasn't something that really was going to be kind of the powerful film that it was. They kind of thought it was probably just more of a gangster film. But, I think that he, as the producer, found the way to get it made that worked really well.
And Lisa Rinzler was a cinematographer for this film. And we've already talked a little bit about the camera, but overall, it's and this was, she's, we talk about these guys as being sort of new to the business, but she was already a 10-year kind of established cinematographer at this point.
Yeah, and had done and has done since a lot of stuff. I mean, she's just been a very busy woman and has done a lot of really interesting films. And I think she did a few more films with them, if I recall. Dead Presidents. And I think what she brings to the table here is a lot of energy. I mean, again, going back to what they did, pulling from Scorsese and filmmakers like that, I think that working with them, she ended up doing a lot of the same. The scene that sticks out in my mind is, again, when Bill Duke is interrogating Kane and the camera's you got that great dolly move kind of spinning around the table, but also the wall behind them, one of the walls, you have those like windows with bars on them, and it's like red light, like blood red light coming through, and you have silhouettes of people standing out there. It's like, that is so not what the real world is going to look like. But it was just a great depiction of the way that perhaps Kane was seeing the world at that particular moment. I loved moments like that through this film.
Oh, I really did too. And, I couldn't help but think of, and I know you love this movie, Graffiti Bridge, the last of Prince's feature films, which
it's
is
high on my list to watch.
Wait, you haven't seen it? I am shocked, sir. Shocked. That is the example of taking this sort of hyper real or sort of fantastical kind of sensate filmmaking and taking it way off the reservation. This is it's similar to, I would say, Batman and Robin. Like where you go just crazy with the neon lights and Mr. Freeze and the crazy roller skating laser dance. That's an example of this style of kind of lighting that goes bananas, and I hate it. And I think Menace to Society is so subtle in some of these touches that I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was shot in some crazy places.
Yeah, they pretty much wanted to. I think it was partly wanting to film it in the real world where these sorts of stories took place, and because of the budget, not really having another option to film it in anywhere else. But yeah, they pretty much shot it in kind of this world in the projects, and it has the look, it has the feel, it has the energy, it has a lot of people from the neighborhood, a lot of just the people who are actually there as the background actors walking through the scenes, a lot of gangsters, a lot of people that you probably wouldn't want to mess with otherwise. And actually they ended up hiring some people in the neighborhoods to kind of work as liaisons, to work as security, and just kind of help things run smooth. And it did. So, but I think that's a really interesting aspect to this story. I think people were probably nervous at first about it, but when they realized what story these filmmakers were telling, they actually, I think, appreciated it. At least the way they tell it.
Yeah, no, I think it's that method of pulling back the covers and letting us sort of see what it's like, you got to be there. And it's interesting. I find that, it moves in and out of feeling like a set, to feeling like, my goodness, we're in the throes of it. I think that's they do that very well, sort of weaving in and out of it. And this is, one of my notes on editing was that it ends up being kind of uneven stylistically, that it changes tone through cutting and camera, kind of dramatically. Depending on what we're looking at, and I think it works for me. I think it's editing by Christopher Kofod.
Christopher did a great job with the editing here. I agree. The tone does change throughout the film, but it's interesting because we get a lot of dips to black throughout, as if we're going from one sequence to the next. And I think it's almost like chapter breaks where we get kind of a little, okay, now that's happened. We're going to pause for a sec. We're going to jump into this now. And I think that allows for those tonal shifts, right?
Yeah, totally. Right.
At least it seemed that way to me. So.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what I mean by it. It works for me. Like, I don't know. I feel like in some cases, maybe in a weaker film, it would strike me sideways, but here it really works.
Well, and again, working with young filmmakers who are trying stuff. Even Christopher and the sound team, they did some fun stuff with the sound mixing. Throwing in like when the lights are changing from green to yellow to red, you get like some gun sounds, and you get train sounds with traffic. And there's some interesting choices that they made just to amp things up. And I found it. All of these different elements made for a very energetic film, including the music. Quincy Jones III did the music. And again, going back to Scorsese, they pulled a lot of source music, but they did have some actual score in here. And everything works. It all has a great feel and helps drive this world.
One of the things I like so much about the music is just how well integrated it is to the characters, right? They sing the songs so often, they like rap along with the music. It's really integrated into the tapestry of the narrative, and I really like that. I found myself kind of musing on that more often than not.
I have to jump back to music again and say Quincy Jones III in the credits, he goes by QD3, which I think is such a strange thing to go by, but I guess his name is Quincy Delight Jones III. And so I guess that's where he gets the QD3 from. But this is something that I never knew about his father, Quincy Jones, is that he, this son, Quincy Delight Jones III, was born in London. Quincy Jones was married to Swedish model Ulla Andersson. And this Quincy QD3 grew up in Sweden. And I didn't even know that Quincy Jones, one, married a Swedish model, or two, lived in Sweden. I thought that was like, oh, I never knew those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, such a strange little thing to learn.
How to do an award season?
This was one of those small films. It didn't strike at the Oscars, but it certainly struck the Independent Spirit Awards. It was nominated for Best First Feature. Robert Rodriguez's El Mariachi ended up kind of walking away with that one because it was such an interesting experiment. Tyrin Turner was nominated for Best Male Lead, but lost to Jeff Bridges in American Heart. And Lisa Rinzler did win an award for Best Cinematography, so kudos to her. Also, at the MTV Movie Awards, they ended up winning the Best Movie, which is kind of People's Choice Awards sort of thing. The other nominees were Jurassic Park, Philadelphia, Schindler's List, and The Fugitive. So some huge players, and this is the film that ended up walking away with Best Movie of the Year. I think that says a lot for the time and what people were wanting to see, and the energy that this had. I think it just captured that MTV audience. Did the awards help it when it came to the numbers? Yeah, the Hughes Brothers, they burst onto the scene with this debut, proving they had the skills to make more. This movie only cost $3.5 million, or about $5.8 million in today's dollars. The movie was released wide May 28th, 1993, opposite Cliffhanger, Happily Ever After, Made in America, and everyone's favorite Super Mario Brothers.
Hey, Mario!
Certainly the smaller... Certainly the small film of the bunch, even with a limited open release, the movie did find an audience and ended up grossing $27.9 million at the domestic box office, or about $46.6 million today. All told, the movie ended up making an adjusted profit per finished minute of $420,000. Great job for this talented duo, and a solid start to their feature film careers.
I think we should rank it, Andy.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You could even just swipe right over to your show notes and tap on the flick chart. Just tap on it. It'll take you right over to this very film so you can add it to your flick chart list. And let's see how it does. I'm feeling good. But it all hinges on the very first ranking.
It's hard. We've got Menace to Society or Mad Max, George Miller's 1979 start to the series.
This is not hard for me. I am all Menace to Society on this one.
If it were Road Warrior, I would pick that. But
then it
Mad
would be
Max,
hard.
I'm picking Menace to Society.
As a thought experiment, if it were Joe versus the volcano,
I would pick Menace to Society. I would pick Joe versus the volcano. Sorry.
No, wait, I have you on record.
You confused me, Bill Duke. Damn you! Warn me down.
You messed up there. You did. You messed up.
All right. So Menace to Society or Trading Places.
Menace to Society, please.
Menace to Society, indeed. Menace to Society or 101 Dalmatians.
Aw, that was such a sweet film.
It is. I'm going to say Menace to Society, though.
Yeah, I'm going to say Menace to Society.
Menace to Society or Children of Men. Definitely Children of Men for me.
Yeah, okay.
Wow. I thought I was going to have to fight you on that one.
Yeah, I kind of thought you would too, but I if you
recall, changed with that. Yeah,
I changed dramatically with that.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Menace to Society or Snowpiercer. I'm saying Snowpiercer.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm on the fence on that one, but there's something about that movie.
Tilda Swinton, man.
Tilda Swinton, I think, is actually the thing about that movie. She's so weird.
She's brilliant.
So brilliant in that movie.
Okay, Menace to Society or Time Bandits. Haven't seen that in a while. I'm going with Time Bandits. And that probably is because of my connection to it as a child. I really still connect with that film. But per our discussion last week, if I were to just watch these two films for the very first time, I may go with Menace to Society.
See, I feel like my connection with Time Bandits is, while strong, is not as strong as maybe yours is. So I think I'm Menace to Society on this one.
Well, then let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Rock.
Scissors. You crush me.
Good. That's good.
Menace to Society or Stand By Me?
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me. Yes, definitely. Menace to Society or Delicatessen?
Delicatessen.
Delicatessen, indeed. Well, that puts Menace to Society kicking off our Hughes Brothers series at 31 on our flick chart.
Oh, I like that.
That is a fantastic spot. I am thrilled that the Hughes Brothers, right out of the gate, broke in so high on our chart. So.
Me too.
Kudos. Yes.
Me too. Good movie. What's this for you, your Letterboxd ranking? Letterboxd.com/thenextreel.
This film, I give it 4 stars. I feel like I want to give it a little more, but there were a few things with it that I just had a difficulty connecting with. But I think 4 stars is pretty strong for me.
Can you land on quarter stars? Because I'm a 4.5 stars on this movie.
I can do a quarter. If it's a quarter, I just bump it up. So then I'll just round it up.
So it's a 4.5 stars.
4.5. Yeah, it'll be 4.5. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay, we'll do that.
I really enjoyed this movie. I had a great time with this movie. This is one of those examples where I was worried watching it because it's been a while since I've seen it, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be one of those things where it's going to come off. It's just not going to. It's not going to be what I remember, and in this case, it was exactly what I remember. And the feelings that I got to experience again were so familiar. Of just kind of reacting to this movie. And now I have the exact same experience because since we did City of God on this show, I teach it now in one of my classes, and I have this same experience every time I watch that movie now too. There's just such a gift at being able to kind of pull back the curtain on this other world that I am so ill experienced. So I really am thankful for this film. I love that we got it on the list, and I'm really happy with where it landed.
You know, it's funny. We're going to be skipping their next film, Dead Presidents, and their documentary they did after that, American Pimp. We're going to be jumping to their adaptation of the graphic novel From Hell. But after that, I mean, these guys have done so few films. They did The Book of Eli, which we're also going to talk about. And then they kind of, I don't know what's gone on with the Hughes brothers, but according to Albert, the brothers love each other, but are also, quote, kind of in a weird dance right now. I don't know what's gone on, but they have done some directing jobs solo. Allen, in 2013, did Broken City with Mark Wahlberg and Russell Crowe. I don't recall that doing very well. And then right now, Albert is trying to finish up his huge epic film, The Solutrean, which is a historic drama with Cody Smith-McPhee that is, I think he's kind of a caveman. It's a caveman story.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, they've kind of taken their own separate paths, and I think one of them is actually living in Czechoslovakia now or something. So I really want to know the story with these two guys and kind of what's been going on behind the scenes. So
I would love them to get out of that weird place because they need to do more movies together. I think there's still stories to be told. What a cool experience this was. Okay, so you already said it. Next week we're doing you said it and then I forgot it. From Hell. We're doing From Hell.
Yeah, From Hell next week. Yeah,
talk about it. That's a different experience. And then so between now and then, I will be in bed.
I'm going to take O-Dog up on that burger.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
Do you know what I love about Amazon?
What's that?
The depth that reviewers will go to leave such rich and insightful commentary on their experience with the film.
Very true.
Do you agree?
Very true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll go first. Mine is from Morgan writes with a 1 star that he hated it, and his comment is, I had a nightmare. I got hit by a drive-by. I got rid of the movie. I only saw it once. I mean, you don't want to have that kind of a nightmare based on this movie. I actually am not entirely sure that the two are related. Maybe, maybe those should be 2 separate paragraphs. I had a nightmare. I got hit by a drive-by. Oh, in other news, I got rid of this movie.
Right. Well, I've got a 1 star also by Lisa, who clearly, I don't know if she was falling asleep while she was writing or just kind of lost interest in the whole process, but it's like she just stopped mid-word. Lisa's 1 star review says, would like my money back, was too violent. Couldn't even finish spelling violent. It's like she just gave up.
Or maybe she misspelled violin, Andy. You don't know. We'll never know. It was too
violin.
It was too violin. Oh, thanks, Amazon. It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.